doing. We give God glory. We magnify Him in this dark place. Oh, I know it's beautiful. I really hate the beach. There's so much seediness that goes on at the beach and so much danger that goes on at the beach. I'm not going to name names on this broadcast. I already did that on my worldwide radio show. But one thing I will tell you is that with or without the co-laborers that I came here to find, I will shake the dust off my feet when I leave from this place. In the city of Acapulco, there was such a nest of cartel involvement with all of the tourism industry that even though the governorship had been turned, even though the mayor, who was the head of the local police and the tourist police, had all been turned to the president's party, still the corruption was endemic there. And it took a Class 5 hurricane to come in and break every window out of every hotel in the entire city to have to be rebuilt. And it will be rebuilt in a different order. Some places, tourism is the #1 industry, and when there's no tourism because of crime or whatever, the place really suffers. The local inhabitants suffer. But at the same time, when there's a vibrant tourist industry that's run by organized crime, that's a problem too. I'll tell you what, in this place, I'm looking up at the Green Mountains, so a bow shot from here, it's completely cartel controlled for hundreds of miles. And even down here, they've got their eyes and their ears in every hotel and in every establishment. You can have tourism without that. A lot of people are in for a big surprise when they go to El Salvador because it's safe. You can go there, you can lie on the beach, but if somebody's looking for deviant culture, like is so rampant here, the homoeroticism is off the hook. The male massage parlors and the rainbow flags are just everywhere in your face. You can't even walk down the street. It's a disgusting perversion of maleness and what maleness should be. Steroids, too, everywhere for sale. Anabolics, yep, right there in the window. I've been to a lot of disgusting places to do interventions, and I'm going to tell you about one when I was in high school. But this is at the top of the list. It is just so gross. So the tourists went to El Salvador. They got checked into their hotel, a couple of guys, and they thought, what should we do next? I know. Let's go score a nug. Now, that is pretty tame on the continuum of weirdness. One little bright spot here, I walked in one hotel, the hotel that the tourist police base out of. They don't have their own headquarters. They will when the central government is in power here, but as for now, they don't. They have to go use the hotel bathrooms. And out of all the places in town, I saw this sign, it was in English and Spanish, and it said, this establishment, a tiny little hotel on the square, this establishment is against and has a zero tolerance policy for the abuse and enslavement, basically, of persons, women, and children. So they said it right there in English and Spanish, that this establishment has a zero tolerance policy. In this building, you will not find people coming and going all day long as tricks are being turned, especially with a person who's not free and is being pimped out. One bright spot, one little bright spot in that city, in this city. The tourist police is very weak, though. It's a very small outfit. Time for a change, don't you think? You know, my friend in Colombia, who confronted me when I said, hey, Colombia's on the edge of war right now. A month ago, 5 weeks ago, I said, be careful. I don't think that's a safe place to live. He said, I don't know where you're getting your information. Well, guess what? The 82nd Airborne's in Colombia right now, ready to deploy into neighboring Venezuela. We're looking at a very major war to be launched right there. And the central government of Colombia, I don't think, will be online with that, which means that it's going to be civil war too, if that breaks out. Anyway, my friend would love to come into a place like this and run an operation, which would probably cost $100,000 just in expenses, to run a little operation to rescue a few people out of sex slavery. And he'll find plenty here, been offered to me. But here's what he can't do. Call for the sea to rise up and cleanse this place. But I will do that of a certainty when I leave. Of a certainty. The person, one of the persons that I came here to see, is wise enough that one time she came and looked for me and said, please don't leave this place and shake the dust off your feet. I know that you have been maligned here. Can you believe she did that? You talk about a wise woman from Shechem. I'm accustomed to people calling my bluff. They want to see the aces. And they do. And they won't even believe even when they see him, even when the Lord's punishing rod comes through. Like the one police officer that said, I've had 3 hail claims in 5 years. In 5 years, his house got destroyed 3 times by weather. And he couldn't understand, couldn't fathom what could possibly be wrong. Well, the wrath of God was against that man and his house. Anyway, that will surely happen in this place. I wish people were not so obtuse about the invisibles, because the hand of God is just so readily apparent. The heavens declare the glory of God. It's so easy to see. So where's that person today? Whether those persons are found or not, I will leave this city and undust my feet against it. I was looking at the map years ago and thinking to myself, with all of this Indian country, with all this jungle, and the cartel-controlled capital city of Guadalajara, Jalisco, how can they not know that they're in a den of iniquity? All right, so I decided I was going to tell you a story about another intervention years ago. Hanging out at the house one night. I was in high school, so I was 16 or maybe 17. Probably I was 17 when this happened. It's probably my senior year. And I got a call from my friend. He says, hey, I got a call from this girl's parents, a girl we all knew. I'll tell you, her name's Liz Reshley. She probably lived this down and had a wonderful life. She was a tremendous person and a straight A student. She was a beauty. She was about 6 feet tall. I'm sure she was every bit of 6 feet. Excelled in sports. Excelled in her scholastics. That's where I really knew her from, as we were in all of our AP classes together, and I went to a number of classes with her. And I never was at all, close to her romantically, but my friend was. And her parents called him. Now, this isn't the days of cell phones, right? They called him on his daddy's house phone, got a hold of my friend, who was Liz's boyfriend at times, off again and on again. And everybody knew he wanted it in her pants. He wanted it in everybody's pants, all the girls' pants, right? And this girl's dad called him and said, hey, I'm worried about my daughter. Would you go get her? Well, she was in the drug den, downtown, with the hoodlums, over the hill. Everybody knew that there was a street at the crest of the Mississippi Valley, 1900 North, and that if you crossed that street at night, you were deep, deep, deep in the hood. Nothing good happened down there. Well, that's where she was. That's where she was. And they knew that we were martial artists and that this guy was a dangerous slugger. He was a lot bigger than me. But I was known to be very good at batting cleanup, and if things got really ugly and went to lethal force, even back then, I had a reputation for that. Well, he called me up and said, hey, I got this call from Liz's dad, and we got to go get her. So, sure enough, I went and picked him up. We drove down to the drug den, down where all the houses were falling apart, pit bulls tied up in yards with no grass, trash sitting around, busted vehicles. We left our rather comfortable environment, went over there to get this girl. So, of course, I'm thinking of that today. And I didn't go inside because I was the designated driver and I was the backup in case things got really ugly. But my friend went in there, went into that house. He was in there a good while. And of course, it's full of the gang, right? God only knows what they did to that girl that night. You know what happened in the end? She wouldn't come. We drove away. We drove away without her. Because that's where she wanted to be, is in that den of iniquity with all of those abusers. And it's what the place was full of. It was crime and violence and drugs. People that get into the drug culture, one of the bugs that bites them is the power it gives them over other people. They can literally command people to get on their knees in front of them and do horrific things. Women and men. And that power is attractive to certain darkened souls. I'm really proud of Trump to come out and say, hey, this kind of criminal, I support the death penalty on the first offense. You see, he's beginning to line up with the Bible on that. Really, the Bible goes a lot further. You know, my friend loved Liz. Of all the people that he would really like to be serious with and to think about planning a life with at that time, she was at the top of the list. I don't think that she even slept with him. I don't think she was a person of noble character. She didn't do that. But just this one time, she fell off the wagon, went straight to the drug den. I don't know if it was of her own will or not at that point. But once she was in there, she did not have the will to leave. Of course, someday we'll have law and order, and places like that will not be allowed to exist because they're carnivorous and they depredate the youth of the community. People like that won't be allowed to exist. Never been to a high school reunion. I don't know how any of these people turned out. Nobody ever calls me from my hometown in my exile. It was a sad night. Isn't it amazing that I remember that today? That I was willing to take all comers and use all lethal force, blast our way out of the hood for that girl who was a casual acquaintance. And that's the way it should be. But she preferred to be a victim. She chose a dark path. Well, I just want to share with you all that I was thinking of that. I wonder where my very old friend is that one time tracked me down and said, "Do not leave and undust your feet against this place, please." No sorogo. She pleaded with us. Where is her fear of God today? Why does she prefer the den of iniquity? When escape is an option, when the hero is here, when the gospel could move forward. Again, when someone's the head of a huge worldwide ministry, they may want to be doing some worldwide ministry, lest the whole thing dry up like a shriveled prune. And it's here. I mean, in Latin America, not in this town. There are some few Christians in this town. The Lord's given us all of Latin America. There are entire nations turning to God. There are entire nations embracing the gospel. If someone, say, wanted to teach a young person, on one hand, they could go get a government job, like another good friend of mine did. He actually told me the other day, "We're just alike. I'm a warrior on the front lines, just like you." You know what? Try telling that to a one-legged veteran from the sandbox. He will hop over there and knock your ass out. Somebody who left their leg in the sandbox. And Joe Blow's going to tell him from his comfortable position that they're just alike. Better be ready to fight that one-legged man. I didn't say anything. But I'll tell you this. We're not alike. Yeah. We're not alike. He planned his whole life to work within government education. And that's been his daddy all these years, not the Lord God Almighty. And he has to accept all the sodomy and the sodomitic policies that go along with that. He's got to just take it. So you see how much we're not at all alike. So let's just say that a young person wanted to work in education and glorify God. They could take that route, loll around in the drug den, or they could go to a place where entire nations are turning to God and restructuring all of their government bureaus and looking for people that have the wisdom of God, that the spirit of the holy gods is in them, so that they can rebuild their education systems. Whole nations, millions of people. It's a no-brainer. You want in the cage, you want in the drug den, or do you want out of it? My phone's not ringing. Here's me sitting in the car. Got the keys, got the driver's seat, may or may not have a 12 gauge. Ready to take all comers. But you know what? Some people are so mad at God that they just will not serve Him. They won't give Him another chance. They prefer their idols. They go back like Naomi's other daughter-in-law went back to her idols and her people and her gods. You don't have to let that convert you. You don't have to let the heathens convert you. There's a way out. There's a thin line. There's a remnant of the Lord. But also the proverb is true, that the poor man, even his neighbors, hide from him. Though he seeks them with pleading, they're not to be found. I'm only poor because of these successive abandonments. Abandonment after abandonment after abandonment. It's a hard thing to be the rallying point for the free world when everyone loves darkness rather than light. Where are the preachers at? Lord, forgive me for saving Steve Anderson's life. I should have let him die. He put himself in a situation. He deserved to die. He was gonna die. And I saved him. I shouldn't have done that. I apologize for it again. I know better now. But now the Steve Andersons of the world have got everybody pimped out and gacked out in his drug den. And it is a drug den. Any place somebody like that is in charge, who's a sodomite, a serial fornicator, fornicated right in front of all the recovering alcoholics, shook the whole house while all of them listened. Will never be right. Got to drive out people like that. Not cuddle up to them in the drug den like Liz Retchley. Not pay them. That's disgusting. So hey, you got the controls. You want to run the whole thing in the ground? It's up to you to do it. I'm sad about it. It's crazy that even though as your friend, my phone rang, but it's just the scammers. Sometimes I get messages from the campaign of telemarketers to let me know that my line is still active, just in case somebody wanted to reach out to me. Oh, and hookers. Seems like every day. It's not why I keep my comms open. I keep it open for the Lord's people, should they want to escape. But they would not.